Hello music fans, the third quarter of 2023 is here, so I wanted to make a quick video, hopefully quick, where I talk about some of the albums that are coming out in July, August, and September, so the third quarter of 2023. I've got about just over 50 albums written down in the metal, rock, and prog worlds that I plan to check out, and I'll try to give like a quick 30-second pitch on each of them, or maybe even faster, so you know what's coming out, and I'll put a list in the comments as well. On July 7th, we have I Am the Manic Whale releasing Bumper Book of Mystery Stories. It's progressive rock, the fourth album by this band from the UK. I listened to the single Erno's Magic Cube before the album came out, and it's great, really catchy song about a Rubik's Cube. It's like this song was made for me, I love it. Same day we have Nita Strauss releasing The Call of the Void. This is heavy metal with hard rock, melodic death metal, metalcore, neoclassical, progressive, and power metal influences all thrown in here. It's the second solo album by this great female guitarist who played with Alice Cooper, Demi Lovato. I heard the single The Golden Trail featuring Anders Frieden of In Flames on vocals, and I swear it sounded like I was just listening to a classic In Flames track. I also heard The Wolf You Feed featuring Alyssa White Glues from Arch Enemy. Sounds just like I'm listening to a poppier Arch Enemy with heavy, brutal scream verses and catchy sung choruses, cool guitar solo, key change. Check this out. Should be some good guitar-based music. Also, July 7th, Solstein is releasing a self-titled album. This is progressive rock with jazz fusion and funk influences, and it's the debut album by this international band based in Norway and the US. I heard the singles Hamada and Intersection, and that got me interested. They're both instrumental, melodic, and groovy, nice and jazzy with lots of funky synthesizers. Some more stuff on July 7th is Butcher Babies with Eye for an Eye and Till the World's Blind. This is groove metal with some thrash, metalcore, pop, and alternative metal influences. The fourth album by this American band. If you're a fan of Lamb of God, Ginger, Arch Enemy, check this out. It sounds like a mix of those bands to me. There's two female vocalists here who do both harsh and clean vocals. And I think I might even check out Taylor Swift's Speak Now, Taylor's version that's coming out July 7th. This is just pop, maybe pop rock a little bit with country influences. It's not really on my in my usual genres, but Taylor Swift's such a huge artist that I'm considering checking it out. It's actually a re-recording of her third album, Speak Now, as part of a counteraction to her 2019 Masters dispute. A company called Big Machine Records, owned by Scooter Braun, owns the masters of her first 6 studio albums, so she wants to make new versions that she owns herself. There's a few songs I like from that album, but honestly I could never really get into listening to a full album of hers. I always find that it's kind of boring to listen to a full album while hearing the same chord progressions and lyrical content over and over again. Every now and then she has a catchy song, so I'll check it out. Now let's move on to July 14th. We've got Voyager releasing Fearless in Love. This is progressive metal with electronic and pop influences. It's the 8th album by this Australian band who recently had a song featured in the Eurovision Song Contest. Their songs Promise and Dreamer were part of that song contest, and those are very catchy and poppy, but they also have some prog metal aesthetic in them, including a brief scream in Promise. So it's like prog metal with the guitars that have genty tone, but the drums are almost always playing a poppy dance beat. So check that out if that sounds good to you. Also on July 14th, Dream the Electric Sleep is releasing American Mystic. This is progressive rock with post-rock influences, the 5th album by this American band. I heard the single Beyond Repair, that got me interested. Ring band Möbius, also on that day, is releasing Commissioned Works Part 2, 6 Drops of Poison, another progressive rock one, the 3rd album by this Norwegian retro symphonic prog band for fans of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now let's move on to July 21st. Voivod is releasing Morgöth Tales. This is progressive thrash metal. It's the 16th album by this Canadian band and features re-recordings of a bunch of songs from their back catalog, as well as one new song to celebrate their 40th anniversary as a band. The Zenith Passage is releasing Datalysium. This is technical death metal with progressive influences, the second album by this American band for fans of the Faceless, and the debut album by Cynic called Focus. It kind of sounds like that. I heard the single Lexi Contagion, and I love the fretless bass. The vocoder melodic vocals remind me of Cynic. The harsh growling vocals and fast lead guitars remind me of the Faceless. And lastly, on July 21st is Greta Van Fleet releasing Starcatcher. This is hard rock with some blues and progressive influences. Third album by this American band who's well known for sounding a lot like Led Zeppelin. Moving on to July 28th, we have Arch Echo releasing The Final Pitch. This is instrumental progressive metal with jazz fusion influences. It's the third album by this American band who I saw live opening for Haken. They have an amazing virtuosic playing, particularly on the keyboards and guitar. Also July 28th, Vinsta is releasing Freiweitn. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's progressive melodic death metal with acoustic and folk influences. The fourth album by this Austrian band that started as a folk project but then got heavier and evolved into progressive death metal, which you don't see happen very often. It usually goes the other way by starting heavy and softening up, but they started soft and got heavier. Fans of Opeth will like this. It sounds a lot like Opeth. They've got a lot of violins as well, so that gives them another added flavor that Opeth doesn't typically have. Also July 28th, Karnataka is releasing Requiem for a Dream. This is progressive rock, the sixth album by this Welsh band. Nuclear Power Trio is releasing Wet Ass Plutonium. This is instrumental, kind of like progressive thrash metal with Latin and jazz fusion influences and lots of just guitar shredding. It's the second album of this American band who wears masks of Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un, and plays instrumental music with lots of virtuosic shredding from all members. Moving on to August. On August 4th, I have Edward Reekers with the Liberty Project. This is a progressive rock opera, the fourth solo album by this Dutch singer who is the singer of progressive rock band Kayak. It's a concept album with many guest collaborators for fans of rock operas and musicals like what Arion does. It's about what would happen if there was a second Big Bang that created a parallel universe. The single, The Present Day, was okay, but I imagine this song won't be the climax of the album. Also on August 4th, Repentance is releasing The Process of Human Demise. This is melodic metalcore with groove metal influences, the second album by this American band. The single Withered and Decayed is groovy and catchy. The verses groove with heavy riffs and screaming for fans of Lamb of God. Then the chorus has a catchy hook for fans of Bullet for My Valentine. August 8th has Conquer Divide releasing Slow Burn. This is metalcore with post-hardcore influences. The second album by this all-female American metalcore band. I heard the single Welcome to Paradise. I think fans of Spirit Box will like this. August 11th has Himina releasing Romancing the Ether. This is progressive metal. It's the fifth album by this great Australian band. It's a 35-minute prog epic piece with 6 movements. So that sounds really exciting. I really love everything this band has done. And on the same day, Hail the Sun is releasing Divine Inner Tension. This is post-hardcore with progressive rock and math rock influences. The 6th album by this American band. High-pitched emo-style vocals that are really catchy, really fast guitars and drumming for fans of Dance Gavin Dance, Idola, Protest the Hero. Their last album was in my top 20 albums of 2021. And I like all the material they put out, so I expect this to be pretty great. Very likely to be my favorite post-hardcore album of the year. Also, August 11th has Neil Morse releasing The Dreamer Joseph Part 1. This is another progressive rock opera. And it's really hard to count how many albums this prolific American musician has done, because he's been in Spock's Beer, Transatlantic. He has this project called the Neil Morse Band. He's released an album under a project called the Virgilio Morrison Jennings in 2022. And he has many solo albums in different styles, from straightforward singer-songwriter albums to prog albums to Christian worship music, the latter of which I'm not interested in personally, but he is an excellent musician, and I believe this one is going to be more progressive, so and also have a bit of a rock opera and musical theater kind of vibe to it, so I'm excited for this one. I heard the single Like a Wall and it sounded pretty cool. Also August 11th we have Earn releasing A Feast on Sorrow. This is progressive sludge metal with some stoner rock influences, the second album by this band from the UK. I really like their first album, Serpents and Spirit, so I'm excited to hear this one. And Creek is releasing Depth Perception, which is metalcore, and it's the second album by this band from the UK. On to August 18th, we have Craig Owens releasing Volume 1. This is post-hardcore with rock, electronic, alternative, and pop influences. It's the debut solo album by Craig Owens, which will be a collection of reworked songs from his previous projects like Chiados and Drugs and more. I heard the piano version of Baby You Wouldn't Last a Minute on the Creek, and it's really interesting to hear that song on piano. I really like the original version of the song a lot better though, but I'm curious to hear his renditions of other Chiados songs in particular, because I'm a fan of the band Chiados and love a bunch of the songs they've done, so it'll be interesting to hear him do them on his own. On August 18th as well, we have Damnation Plan releasing The New Horizon. This is progressive melodic death metal, the third album by this Finnish band, for fans of Soilwork, In Flames, and Scar Symmetry, but with more of a focus on clean vocals with hints of power metal and traditional heavy metal. And Oblivion Protocol is releasing The Fall of the Shires. This is progressive metal, the debut album by this project that's led by the keyboard player from Threshold, Richard West. The lineup is completed with 3 renowned musicians: guitarist Rude Jolie from Within Temptation, bassist Simon Anderson from Darkwater, and drummer Darby Todd, who's played with Devin Townsend. And last but not least, Threshold's Carl Groom has also contributed some truly great guitar solos to the record. On August 22nd, Death Clock, the great fictional cartoon band, is releasing Death Album 4. It's melodic death metal. It's the 4th album by this fictional band from the Adult Swim animated TV series Metalocalypse. I've always enjoyed the show. It's cool that music of the band in the show is so well done too, instead of just being lame cartoony music. They have great riffs. I used to love playing Thunder Horse on Guitar Hero, so this will bring back some memories. And then they're also releasing the soundtrack of the movie Metalocalypse Army of the Doomstar on August 25th. Also on August 25th, Course of Fate is releasing Somnium. This is progressive metal, the second album from this band from Norway. Noveria is releasing The Gates of the Underworld, progressive power metal, the 4th album by this Italian band. And Blut Ost Nord is releasing Disharmonium Nahab. This is avant-garde black metal, and it's the 16th album by this French band. And lastly, for August 25th, Vandenberg is releasing Sin. This is a hard rock album, and it's the 5th album by this Dutch-American band formed way back in 1981. They made 3 albums in the 80s and then disbanded in 1987. But they returned with their 4th album in 2020. I'm not very familiar with them, but I heard the single Sin and I thought it sounded like a solid hard rock track, so I figured I'd check this out. On to September 1st, Soen is releasing Memorial. This is progressive metal, the 6th album by the Swedish band for fans of Opeth, Tool. The single Unbreakable is great as usual with these guys. They always put out great stuff. Empire State Bastard is releasing Rivers of Heresy. This is progressive metal with hardcore influences, the debut album by this group founded by 2 members of the band Biffy Clyro. And Polaris is releasing Fatalism. This is metalcore, the third album by this Australian band. The single Inhumane had great guitar riffs and energy, so I added this to my list to listen to. September 4th, we have Southern Empire releasing Another World. This is progressive rock with a little bit of metal influences in there. The third album by this Australian band. September 8th, Silosis is releasing A Sign of Things to Come. This is progressive thrash metal with melodic death metal influences. The sixth album by this English band. And Royal Blood is releasing Back to the Water Below. This is hard rock with blues, alternative, psychedelic, and stoner rock influences. The fourth album by this English band. On to September 15th, which is a busy day for releases. It has the most on my radar right now. I think 9 albums coming out that day that I'm interested in. Baroness is releasing Stone. That's progressive sludge metal with a lot of different influences like indie, alternative, psychedelic, and hard rock thrown in. It's their 6th album. Apotheus is releasing Ergo Atlas, progressive metal, and it's their 3rd album. And Chronicles of Father Robin is releasing the Songs and Tales of Eroia. I don't know how to pronounce that. This is progressive rock. It features a bunch of great people from Norway, some people from Wobbler and Tusmork, I believe, which are Wobbler in particular. I really love that band. So I'm excited to hear what they have come out with. I think this one's a pretty expansive, like, multi-part, multi-disc offering, so will be kind of lengthy, but probably has a lot of cool prog epics. Corey Taylor's releasing CMF2, that's just hard rock, the 2nd album from this lead singer of Slipknot. Danko Jones is releasing Electric Sounds. This is another hard rock, but with more like alternative blues, punk, and some metal influences. It's the 12th album by this Canadian band. I've seen them live, they're a fun band to see. Bring Me the Horizon is releasing Posthuman Next Gen. This is kind of like pop rock, I guess, with some electronic, some metalcore, alternative, and hard rock influences in there. It's the 7th album by this British band. I haven't really liked what they've been doing on their later albums. Their first 2 albums were okay, but I still didn't love them. They really took a nosedive in my perspective. I guess they're doing more innovative stuff and have more variety now, but it's a lot of just like pop stuff and less of the metal now. And also continuing with September 15th, I've got 3 albums left from that day. Thy Art is Murder is releasing Godlike. This is deathcore, the 6th album by this Australian band. The single Join Me in Armageddon has great riffs and intensity, brutal growling vocals and breakdowns. Resolve is releasing Human. This is post-hardcore with metal influences. 2nd album by this French band. Sounds like it'll have cool riffs, time signature changes, emotional vocals, screaming, clean singing. And Seven Sons is releasing One of Us is the Killer, which is actually a full album cover of the Dillinger Escape Plan, their album from 2013 of the same name, but done by a classical string quartet that plays metal and hardcore music. So that'll be kind of interesting to hear. I love the Dillinger Escape Plan album there. I love all the Dillinger Escape Plan's albums. So really excited to hear a string quartet take that one on. September 18th, Nine Skies is releasing The Lightmaker. This is progressive rock, the 4th album by this French band. It plays in a neo-prog style. I really like their last album, 520, from 2021. I think this band should be much bigger in the prog world than they are. Love their interesting arrangements and the instruments they use, like violin, saxophone. Their last album even features a guest guitar solo from the legendary Steve Hackett of Genesis, which is amazing, so I can't wait to see what surprises this album has in store. September 22nd, Anne is Okay is releasing Abyss Part 1. This is an EP, post-hardcore with metal and pop influences, the 3rd EP by this German band who's released 5 full-length albums to date, with their first dropping way back in 2012. And Cannibal Corpse is releasing Chaos Horrific. This is death metal. the 16th album by this American band. I'm not really into straightforward meat and potatoes death metal like this, but I'll check them out because they're a big name and I know they do it well. And on to September 29th, Steven Wilson is rumored to be releasing the Harmony Codex. I don't know if he's officially said it will be this day, but that's the date that I've seen leaked online. Great progressive rock artist, of course. This is his 7th solo album. He's the founder of Porcupine Tree. KK's Priest is releasing The Sinner Rides Again. This is heavy metal, the 2nd album of his band featuring former guitarist of Judas Priest, KK Downing. Their first album sounded a lot like Judas Priest, but it was very good and had a lot of nice guitar riffs, solos, and catchy vocal hooks. Check this out if you're a fan of Judas Priest and traditional heavy metal bands. Sacred Dawn is releasing Dismal Swamp also on September 29th. This is progressive metal with heavy metal and power metal influences, the 4th album by this American band. This single, Truth Be Told, is what I heard. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I'd love this from that, but this is a smaller band. When I checked in July, they only had 29 monthly listeners on Spotify, so that explains kind of the lower budget production value, but the riffs here sound good. I'm just going to give them a chance because I like finding less popular bands that are great. And the last album that I'm going to mention on my list for the quarter is Of Virtue with Omens, coming out on September 29th. This is melodic metalcore, the 4th album by this American band. The single Cut Me Open has catchy clean singing as well as intense screaming. It was well done, so I added it to my list to check out. And that's all the releases for the quarter that have dates so far. I'm sure there are plenty more that I don't know about. These are just kind of the ones that I heard about that I thought were interesting, that I wanted to listen to. There's a lot in other genres that I'm not as big into that I didn't include, or even some that are in genres that I like that I listened to the single but didn't really like, so I didn't put on my list. But let me know if I overlooked any gems that you know that are coming out in Q3 of 2023. I expect to hear something from Tesseract. I think they're releasing a single July 13th, and I'll be really excited to hear a date for their new album, but it hasn't been announced yet as far as I know. I'm excited to hear from Thrice. They should be coming out with Horizons West, but they don't have a date for that either. The Deer Hunter, I want to hear about when Sunya is coming out. They have no date for that yet, but yeah, Tesseract, Thrice, The Deer Hunter, those are probably 3 of my most anticipated albums that remain in the year, but I don't know when they're coming. Same thing with The Pain of Salvation. I think they're supposed to release an album called The Deep End. Yeah, and that's what I'm excited to hear. I'm sure there's more that I missed, and I'm sure I'll discover a lot more by watching other people's YouTube channels and music reviews and going on some music sites to see what's come out. Stay tuned for my next video, which will likely be a recap of the albums released on July 7th and what I think of them. Until then, peace out.